Clerk, if you could start with a roll call.
Commissioner Bueller?
Present.
Commissioner Cook?
Here.
Commissioner Archer?
Here.
Mayor De La Isla?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Jensen via his proxy, Councilmember Tony Emerson?
Here.
Councilmember Padilla?
Here.
Councilmember Lesser?
Here.
Councilmember Hiller? Councilmember Clear? Councilmember Ortiz? Councilmember Mays?
Here.
Councilmember Cohen?
Got here from work.
If we could start with our item number 3.
Item 3, action item, approval of December 13th, 2017 JEDO Board meeting minutes.
The minutes were distributed prior to the meeting. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to review them. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Is there a motion on the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mayor De La Isla, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. If we could have a roll call.
Commissioner Bueller?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Archer?
Aye.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Councilmember Emerson?
Yes.
Councilmember Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmember Lesser?
Yes.
Been approved. So our next item.
Item 4, presentation JEDO Finance Committee fourth quarter cash statement 2017.
Good evening. I'm Betty Greiner. I'm the treasurer for the JEDO Finance Committee, and I have the cash report for you for the year of 2017. That we will start with the receipts. The City of Topeka received sales tax receipts under this half-cent sales tax for the year of 2017 of $9,047,779.40. Shawnee County received sales tax receipts of $8,493,358.21, and then we had interest income of $27,756.16 for total receipts of $17,568,893.77. On the disbursement side, the City of Topeka received the following disbursements. The final payment for the 21st Street road project from Urish to Indian Hills. That payment was $446,769. The City of Topeka received excess monies from the prior sales tax that ended in the end of 2016 of $9,844,171. And City of Topeka received distributions from this current sales tax of $4,089,149.73. So the total distributions to the City of Topeka were $14,380,090.44. Shawnee County received excess monies from the prior sales tax that ended the end of 16 of $8,372,168.41. Shawnee County received distributions from this current sales tax of $4,429,912.19. So Shawnee County received total distributions of $12,802,080.60. Go Topeka received $5 million. It was actually, since we pay them an equal amount each month, it was actually 8 cents under the $5 million. And then we had audit and bank charges of $5,181. So our cash balance at the end of the year was $1,354,877.87, and we had that balance because the sales tax comes in at the end of the month, and we're not able to distribute it out until the beginning of the next month. So this balance was distributed out in the beginning of January. I'll stand for questions.
Are there any questions regarding this report? Thank you very much for the update. Those are always good to have. Ready for our next item.
Item 5, action item, approval of funding for Project Jingle.
This time we would recognize Molly Howie.
Okay.
Well, I'm filling in for Jackie Steele tonight. Most of you knew probably that it was iffy whether she would make it or not, and I'm happy to announce that her and her husband welcomed a baby girl yesterday. Everybody is happy and healthy and settling in, so I'll fill in for her on this item and the BRE update later. Project Jingle is an existing business expansion project, and it's before you tonight just for funding approval. The company is not ready to announce their name yet, but the hope is that they will be here in the May meeting to do that. The expansion is 12 jobs with an average salary of $45,000 and a $20 million capital investment that increases their building footprint. They're obviously a great corporate citizen, as much of these projects are that come before you, and the economic impact of this is a one-time economic impact of $31 million and a recurring impact of $4 million. The maximum incentive amount is $212,800, and that is both for the investment and the jobs. And that's a performance-based incentive, as most of our projects are. So it's pretty straightforward at this point, but I will stand for any questions if you have them.
Questions regarding this Project Jingle? At this time, then, this is an action item. Is there a motion for the approval of the funding for Project Jingle? Been a motion made by Mayor Della Isla. Is there a second on the funding project?
Second.
Second by Councilman Padilla. At this time, if any other questions regarding this? Okay. Seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Commissioner Bueller?
Aye.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Archer? Aye. Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Councilmember Emerson?
Yes.
Councilmember Padilla?
Yes.
Councilmember Lesser?
Yes.
Thank you.
It approves. Before we go on to the next item, Molly, would we anticipate this item coming back before the board? As we get a little bit after announcements, we would know who it is that we're publicly announcing.
Yeah, I think the plan is in May to come before the board and announce who the company is and hopefully have a contract in place by then too.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 6, presentation, organizational announcement.
Should have just stayed up here. Okay, so some of you were involved with, and at least most of you are aware, that GoTopeka was trying to obtain accreditation with the International Economic Development Council's accredited economic development organization. And so we hosted the folks from that group for a site visit earlier this year, and they interviewed quite a few public members and elected officials and looked over all of our policies and paperwork that we had submitted. And so I would just like to announce and introduce to you Skip Smallwood. He is the chair of the Accredited Economic Development Organization Committee of the International Economic Development Council.
Welcome, Skip.
I think some of you are very familiar because I think some of you were involved in our stakeholder meetings, and I do want to thank you on behalf of Gerald Cook, who also was on the review team. We really appreciate you taking your time to answer a lot of our questions. And I don't know how familiar you are with the process or what's involved becoming accredited. It's actually a two-phase process. The first part is we ask for a lot of documentation ranging from strategic plans, marketing plans, your budgeting, your financials. We even want to look at your organization itself, how it's structured, and even down to how you communicate successes or how you communicate information to the public and also your investors. Once we gather all that information, the review team, in this case was myself and Gerald Cook, we made a recommendation to what is called the AEDO Advisory Committee. There are 30 members around professional economic developers on the committee from around the United States and also Canada on the committee, and the report was presented with a recommendation, and the committee recommended that we do a site visit. And that's exactly what we did last month. And the purpose of the site visit was really to learn a little bit more about the documentation. Of course, I have to admit we were very intrigued with your strategic plan because of how comprehensive it was, but what I was interested in, how holistic it was as well, especially how you're integrating all the different and groups to work as one and have one focus. So that really intrigued us. But also while we're there, we also want to have a meeting with the stakeholders because we also are very interested in learning about the interaction with the Economic Development Organization and with your endeavors, whether it's an investor, whether you were a business, how you were touched or how you were involved with the local economic development organization. I'd have to say those were very productive meetings because those meetings really tell us a lot about how effective the organization really is. So once we complete the site visit, then we produce another report. As you can tell, the review team is very busy. We produce another report, once again, present it to the ADO Advisory Committee, and then the committee votes at that point whether to grant the accreditation or not. Before I announce the results, I do once again want to thank you for participating. I know most of you participated in the stakeholder interviews, but I also want to thank the staff. You had a very professional group, and we really appreciated it. It was a very seamless process. Everything moved very smoothly, and we got probably more information than we really anticipated, but it was very helpful for us to not only compile our report, but also to make appropriate recommendations as well. So based on our report and then the recommendation that was made, the ADO Advisory Committee, the committee has voted to grant the accreditation to go to PICA. So at this time, I'd like to congratulate all of you, including JEDO, for this accomplishment, and I'd like for Molly to step forward, and I'd like to formally present your ADO plaque, as now you are the first in the state of Kansas to become an ADO, so you're kind of setting the bar now for the other economic development organizations in the state of Kansas. So once again, congratulations.
Wow,
And I'd like to
I think we'd like to do a photo op with all of you, as you're an extension of our staff, and we couldn't do this without you. So
We take a break, and at this time, if we could take a recess to take a photo opportunity. Madam Clerk, do we need to take official action on that, or we just, I guess, sir?
Why don't you vote?
Okay. Is there a motion to recess for a photo opportunity? Councilman Emerson. So moved?
So moved, yes, sir.
And a second. Second by Mayor Del Isla. All in favor, raise your left hand.
I'm going lefty.
All opposed, right hand. Seeing none, passes. We are in recess for a photo opportunity.
right here.
That is a pretty neat distinction.
It is amazing.
I'm going to call us back to order, having taken a quick recess. If we could, before we go on to the next item, are there any questions that any of the members might have for Mr. Smallwood about this distinction of the accreditation, or how this might impact us as we move forward? And Skip, I might just ask you, if I could, just to have you come up for a moment.
Okay.
I know you mentioned having been an accredited organization, this sets the bar for the state, other organizations in the state of Kansas, and that we're the first. But does this give us other opportunities in Shawnee County and Topeka and access to the ADO that, as an accredited organization, and maybe access to other things that we didn't have before? How does this benefit us?
I think the main thing is that it's demonstrating, number one, because your investors are going to want to know, what kind of organization am I putting money into? Because you're always, the question is, I want a return on my investment. And I think as an investor, you're always, and even those that are even on the governing side, want to know, do we have a professional organization or not, and especially dedicated to actually being professional. And it's no different than the individual and that becomes an economic developer. It actually is a certification for individuals. This is actually for organizations. So it is demonstrating that we do have a professional organization, but it also, I think, speaks very loudly to prospects, companies that are maybe looking in the area, because it adds to your credibility, because they know that when you're dealing with an ADO, you're actually dealing with a very competent organization, an organization that's ready to provide whatever the resources. So there is some value. It's kind of, you have to look at it that you're actually helping out and you're providing more value to, prospective companies and also, once again, going back to those investors, because they do ask, what are we really getting out of this and what is it you're trying to accomplish? So there is, I think, definitely some real strong value. And roughly about less than 1% of all the economic development organizations in the United States become accredited. And the reason why a lot of them don't is because it's very intensive. There's a lot of information that's being asked for, and it also is a peer review, because you're asking an outside group to come in and you're opening yourselves up to having another group come in and look at yourselves and make appropriate recommendations. What are we doing right? What are some improvement opportunities we can be looking at as well? And I think that's important with economic development groups. They always have to have that quality improvement side, and that's another important aspect of the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by being an accredited organization, this speaks highly of the Greater Topeka Partnership and the work that's been done with the holistic work.
Yes, definitely.
Based on that, is there any questions or comments anybody else might have? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for
very
your
much.
comments.
Once again, congratulations.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 7, presentation, Go Topeka Quarterly Report.
Okay, you've got the fourth quarter report in your packet, and as you know, the timing's a little off, so we like to focus on what's going on right now. So I'll talk with you about where we've come since the beginning of 2018 and what's on the horizon. So with new business attraction, we have 26 active projects in the pipeline right now. We're on the short list for 2 of those projects. Site selection has kind of changed in the past year or two. I was giving an analogy to someone the other day that it's similar to if you're car shopping. When you're car shopping, you used to drive around and look at the car lots and maybe test drive quite a few cars and kick the tires. Well, now you're probably looking at things on your phone or doing some research on the internet, and by the time you get to the car dealership, you're test driving a car that's probably one that you would be likely to buy for a variety of reasons, from the data that's behind it to the way that it looks and feels and the reviews from other buyers. So that's the analogy that I'm giving with the way that site selection is these days. So the number of projects in the new business pipeline are starting to become a little bit lower on a quarter-by-quarter basis, but I think that the quality of the projects is higher. So the research that is done in the back end, by the time they get to connect with us at Go Topeka, they know that we've made it through the first couple rounds of their site selection. So with that, though, relationships and data are key. Things like our unemployment rate, when we're under 4%, we have to kind of fight through that because site selectors see that and they wonder about our workforce availability. So we have to continue to tell the story and the good things that we have with Washburn University and Washburn Tech and the customized training and the fact that the labor that we do have that's here, we can really cater to their needs. So continuing to tell that story out in the nation with site selectors and companies is key. Also, you've heard us talk about the BAFTech initiatives, and we'll talk about that more, but that's the bio, agri, animal health, financial tech side of things, and that's really a growing industry in our area since we sit in the animal health corridor. So we're really trying to capitalize on that and hone in and make Topeka a place on that map in the animal health corridor instead of folks just driving on past Lawrence to head to Manhattan. So you'll hear more about that in the coming months. And then also on the horizon, lead generation is key. So one of our lead sources has always been the State Department of Commerce, and their leads have gone down. So we are finding ourselves needing to augment our lead sources. So we're using a business analytics tool that we just signed on with, and it uses a combination of artificial intelligence to troll the web and look for red flags of companies that could be looking to expand before they actually come out to the public and say, hey, we're putting out an RFP, do you want to respond? We're going to be able to gather that information and have their contact information so that we can go to them and say, we've noticed that your business is poised for growth and we'd like you to look at Topeka. Another thing that we're going to be doing in the next quarter is reviewing our incentive offerings, and that'll be a process that we go over through the rest of the year, but that was a recommendation from the Momentum 2022 strategy, so we'll start that process and report back our findings on that as well. And that's all I have for new business, but as I said, I'm filling in for Jackie, so I'm going to roll into BRE. So business retention and expansion. The existing businesses that we have here, as you know, are growing like crazy. Jackie opened 2 new projects in the fourth quarter of 2017 and 2 just since the beginning of 2018 as well. She continues to build those relationships, and relationships, as you know, are key there as well, because we want those existing businesses to pick up the phone and give Go Topeka a call, whether it's a positive, a negative, or indifferent, just to act, to see us as a resource. So 10 on-site business visits since the first of the year, and we'll continue to fill in for her as she's out on maternity leave. We've got our list of folks that we need to go visit for her. And then one of the major events that her group sponsors and makes sure happens each year is the Financial Services Summit. And so that's slated for September at Security Benefit, and that will continue again this year as it was successful last year. So with that, I will stand for questions about either or.
Are there any questions regarding either of those 2 items from the quarterly report? Okay. Before, I do have one. On the, you said the state's commerce, our leads are down. Is this something that we're addressing with the state through the Commerce Department, and how we can increase those leads?
Yeah, and so I think they realize that the structure at the Department of Commerce is different than it's been in the past. And so with the change in leadership over there, that's something that they're really looking at. And I think they've been open to input and feedback from local economic development organizations, and actually requested feedback from us formally on what they could do better. And so we're working to partner with them and be strategic about the relationship between state and local economic development organizations.
So would I read from that we need to be more proactive in our lead development? Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Arden.
Good evening. So I'm Glenda Washington. Just want to share with you some excitement that we have about this incentive program. It's over 2 years old now. It's 2 years and 1 month and a half old. And I want to celebrate. I just want to kind of give you some history of what we've done with it. The incentive program, through year 1, we thought, okay, let's test it and see how it goes. And year 2, that was just overwhelming. It was just word of mouth is actually what promoted it. So through those programs, through this program, first year, 44 new jobs, first 2 years, 44 new jobs were started. And those are only jobs that we can track, but 44 new jobs came to Topeka, which I believe that this was instrumental in bringing those jobs to Topeka. So we started 44 new jobs, 68 existing jobs, businesses. 68 existing businesses took advantage of the program, and 44 new businesses took advantage of this program. We issued about $584,000 from year 1 to year to date. And we anticipate a 30% increase in that issuance this year. So we'll track it, and we'll talk to you about how we're moving it forward. And just so you know, we do an assessment of ourselves. We take a look at it. There's a committee that actually, as I told you before, does the site visits, and they go out and they visit with the companies. We keep a track of it. If they bought what they said they were going to buy, if they committed to it, and if they grew as a result of this program. So this is one program that I can say is a shining star for small business. Okay, just to share with you what is coming up, we have a number of things. We're very, very active in the next year. So what you'll see is us revamping our startup programs, looking at doing a boot camp, actually getting with other parts of the community, because some people feel like they're left out, and so we don't want that. So we're getting with a group of people to help us deliver training in Spanish. We are looking at what we can do in several collaborations. I'm meeting with the Housing Authority to look at a possibility of putting an incubator on the grounds of a public housing authority facility. I'm meeting with Washburn because we, in Momentum 2022, I think we talked about a little bit about creating that culture of new chefs and foods, a foodie community, basically. And what we're doing is we're talking, tossing and turning about what we can do to bring that to life. We're also looking at during Global Entrepreneur Week, how we collaborate with 712 and what we do as a small business community together. We are working sort of in line with what Momentum 2022, because that is the document that we all blessed, and we're walking that walk. We're looking at it, checking off what we are doing relative to Momentum 2022, and making sure that it addresses what the needs are, where the gaps were, and we are looking at how we can fill those gaps. Just a little bit on Mid-America Angels. It's steadily growing, but we have two things that we want to work on this year. We want to look at how we can focus on identifying Topeka entrepreneurs. We've looked at a number of entrepreneurs in this community through MMA, and what we're MAA, and what we're trying to do is grow our community. So we're looking at where are those people in this community that can take advantage of Mid-America Angels. So we'll be out there uncovering the rock and kind of seeing where they are. And then the other thing is that women investors, we want to make sure that the women investors know about Mid-America Angels, and we want to get more women involved in Mid-America Angels as well. That only grows our community. We don't want them to have to go to another community, a business to go to another community looking for funds when we have funds here in our community. So we'll be sharing what we have, we'll be publicizing it, and we'll be trying to uncover those jewels in our community. PTAC, Christy's not here, but Christy has only been here, she's been here for less than a year. And Christy's actually blown away her goals. She's done really, really well. We're really pleased at the way she's moving through this PTAC program and the individuals that she's bringing to take advantage of it. These are her goals for 2018, and she's moving down the track, but probably is going to be ahead of her goals as well. So she just wanted me to share that with you. And then Entrepreneur Task Force. Karen will come up and talk about that, how she's working with the task force in 712. I stand for questions.
Linda, out of the 44 new jobs and where...
44 new businesses.
New businesses.
Yes, sir.
Out of those 44 new businesses, where do we find those businesses located? Is it central?
They're all over.
Okay.
You find some in Noto, Fairlawn, all over. They're all over the community. It's no one place. Downtown, you'll find some on 21st Street. So they're all over the community, really.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions for Linda about her part? All right. Oh, yes,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Just a quick question. Thank you for the information. It's a good
Yes,
presentation. You mentioned some activity on behalf of trying to maybe make materials available in
Yes.
another language, second language. In addition to that effort, the written materials, what else is being done to outreach to the Hispanic community?
Yeah, so actually I've been working with Lalo and his team, looking at how we can get training programs. I've been given a contact from Kansas City to come down and kind of do some training. I've looked at how we can do some after-hour events so that we can give some education and information. So there's an effort. There's an effort. And if you'd like to help me.
Well, I'll be glad to help in any way I can. And I appreciate that because it's kind of a non-traditional
Yes.
entrepreneurial group.
Yes.
You have to look at a lot of different things, their availability. Often the training that we assume is attractive to everybody isn't in the right time zones or the right
Exactly.
location, all those kinds
Exactly.
of things. So I appreciate your effort in understanding that.
Well, and we took the initiative to co-host the Black Business After Hours, and that's going really well. We knew that we had to reach out beyond where we sit, and so we're looking at how we touch everyone in the community so that everyone rises together.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Any other questions? Good discussion. Okay. 712.
Here we go. Hi, I'm Karen Christolis, 712 Innovations. Glad to see you all again. Thank you. So You have our numbers for the fourth quarter in the report that you were given. So I thought I would take this time and maybe do a little deeper dive into one of the projects that we were doing in the fourth quarter, and that's the Entrepreneurial Task Force. The Entrepreneurial Task Force was a joint effort between Carl Klein at the WSBDC and also Dennis Strobel, one of our serial entrepreneurs here in the community and also a funder. And we said, look, do we have our hands around, as we're getting ready to go into this Momentum 2022, do we have our hands around what we really have as an entrepreneurial ecosystem here to offer people outside of just go to Topeka and the offerings that we think we might know. So we sent a call out, an email actually, to everyone in the phone book, to use an old phrase, everyone in the phone book that we could think of that might have some sort of stake in the entrepreneurial community. And 59 leaders in our community representing those 59 organizations came together for a meeting. And we said, look, this is exactly what we're trying to do. Would you commit and do this with us? And so they did. So for 6 months last year, we had an 8 a.m. on Tuesday mornings every other week. So we had 11 meetings. Not all 59 could attend all sessions, as you know. But everyone came, and we listened to 31 presentations of organizations throughout the community that touch our entrepreneurial community in one way or another. And one of the first things, of course, we did is we set some principles for what we believe as a Topeka-Shawnee County entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so those principles are here, modeled off of what are best practices, but also what makes sense for us here in our community. And one of the things that really struck me is that everyone was that be the glue that's there. It might be one that you might be going, well, what? Do we have sticky fingers? No. Be the glue is if you walk into a room and you see somebody doesn't know everybody else, you be the glue that's going to connect that person to that other organization or that resource. So don't wait and stand back for them to ask, but you, all of us agreed to take the approach and to move forward. And so when you look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem that is here, this is a chart that is pretty standard in the field to look at the different areas. And I've put some highlighted numbers about what we found. One of the really exciting things for us, well, actually for me personally, but everybody else agreed, that we have 10 middle school and high school programs where there's entrepreneurial clubs and or classes that are actually being taught within our districts here in Shawnee County. And then there are, of course, 4 post-secondary and university programs, such as Washburn University and Washburn Tech, and the new programs that are coming on board. In terms of events, there are over 65 events that are targeted specifically for entrepreneurs, all the way from like lunch and learns to big festivals that happen, like the Science and Tech Festival that we received a grant for last year. There are 3 organizations that really, one of their primary missions is to connect entrepreneurs with mentors. We also have 712 Innovations, as you know, it is the co-work makerspace, but this summer we're starting an incubator. So we will have an incubator here in Topeka and Shawnee County that's going to further grow our businesses, and we're doing, 712 is doing that in partnership with Washburn University. And so we're getting more and more connections and ties there. In terms of funding, we have 4 gap funding programs, many of which you're aware of from the reports that you've heard, and then 3 venture capital firms that are located right here. The residents are located right here. And we are looking regionally and to spread this ecosystem out regionally. So there are 35 organizations serving our entrepreneurs here in Topeka and Shawnee County. The news is good, and I just wanted to note that we are just at the beginning of Momentum 2022. So imagine where we're going to be a year from now. We're really excited, and we will be back to keep reporting to you.
Any questions regarding 712 innovations or first quarter report? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I wanted to be able to give you kind of a little class, if you will, since this is workforce and education. Historically, what you've seen in your quarterly reports and in the annual report has been some data, but not a considerable amount of data. And we've been working to adjust that and fix that so that we can move forward and help it match and better align with Momentum 2022, so we can make sure that we're receiving everything that we need so that we can impact and affect the changes that are within the strategy too. So you'll notice an asterisk next to a few of those items: unemployment rate, average wage, and median household income. And that's what you'd historically been receiving in the past years. What you're going to be receiving now in the quarterly reports will include not only the labor force participation rate, as well as the unemployment rate, the average wage, and the employment population ratio, which that employment population ratio gives you a measure of labor market strength. So that's something that between that as well as that labor force participation rate gives us a better assessment of the community as a whole related to workforce. And then annually, you're also going to see educational attainment as well as graduation rate, in addition to the median household income that you've already been seeing in past years too. So that gives us a better snapshot of how we're doing as a community collectively in terms of moving workforce and education forward. So a little bit of class related to the data that we're going to be assessing, but I wanted to be able to explain that because you'll receive that first quarter report before we have the opportunity to be able to kind of discuss that as to why it looks different. Second, wanted to be able to give you an update. I'd mentioned to you previously about the Top City Student Teachers, that program that we kicked off beginning on January 5th, which was fabulous. We had a wonderful day. We had the opportunity, we had about 40 student teachers attend that first kickoff and luncheon. It was hosted at Brown versus Board. At that time, interim mayor, or not interim, but incoming Mayor De La Isla, she was sworn in that evening, but she was able to speak with them. They were able to hear about 4th Gen professionals. They were able to hear briefly about Momentum 2022 related to quality of place and the initiatives within the community. Got to tour Brown versus Board, understand how it could be implemented into their classroom curriculum, whether they're teaching at the elementary school, middle school, or high school level, and tour the State House, and then be able to see kind of what's going on in Noto, because it was also First Friday. So we had a reception for them at the Noto Arts Center that evening. So it was a big kickoff day, if you will. We've since had 2 professional development dinners for them. We hosted the first one at the Discovery Center. We had some financial literacy training, and they were able to tour the Discovery Center. Again, there's something for all of them, even if they're teaching at the high school level. They're able to understand that their students can get involved in community engagement and volunteerism at the Discovery Center, or how they can incorporate it into their curriculum as they become teachers in their classroom in the future. And then the last one we had was just earlier this week, Monday night. We were able to host a panel. We had 6 professionals from across the school districts that gave them a panel discussion about parent interactions and because they don't get that in their curriculum when they're doing their 4-year program. So, and it was very well received. We hosted that up at the Brownstone. So it's been a success. We're looking to move forward to do that, of course, with the fall semester as well. And in the fall semester, we'll have not only student teachers, but first-year teachers, so that we can then integrate them further into the community. And second, we've got an upcoming human resources breakout that we're going to be hosting in connection with the Military Relations Council. That intent is to really help to bridge military transition skills with civilian job positions and share that with employers. And then our Cradle Through Career update that we have is pretty exciting. Not going to pull it off yet, but our interview panel has selected the candidate and made a recommendation. So I encourage you to watch for an announcement soon. I'm excited that we've come that far. So, and I'll stand for questions. There's a lot to impart.
Are there any questions regarding workforce development and education? I look forward to the Cradle Through Career. I think that is one of the most exciting things that we've been working on here lately. Absolutely. Is really focusing in on that Cradle to Career. So thank you very much, and I look forward to the updates.
Thank you.
Good evening. Just want to give a quick update on Forge. So for some of you that are new to JEDO, just want to say what Forge is. Our mission is simple. It's to attract and retain young talents to the Greater Topeka area, period. That's what we do. So really, our focus for 2018 is engagement. We've seen record number of highs of our membership, but now we want to engage them. We want to get them out and involved in the community and really showcase all that Topeka has. So throughout the last 2 months, we've had over 500 of our members come to our events. That was 19 different events that we hosted and meetings, and we had over 500. So these are our engagement is going up. We'll continue to do events that really they're giving us the ideas. They're kind of telling us what they want and what they want to be involved with and what Topeka's lacking, and we're providing that for them. So that's very exciting. Membership is at 1,738 members. We're looking then a snapshot of what this year, some of our goals. A couple of our goals is over 2,500 members. We want to break that barrier, but more importantly, we want to increase the number of 18 to 40-year-olds. As you all know, our population has been stagnant. We're putting pressure on ourselves as an organization to grow that, and not only do that, is bring the young professionals, young talents to Topeka. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
That's an amazing number of young people so far and a good goal for upcoming. Questions for Forge or what we're doing to attract young people to stay in our community? All right. Well, we look forward to the continued updates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, presentation, Momentum 2022.
Perfect. All right. Good evening. Thank you very much for hearing all of our updates tonight. We sure appreciate it. Just going to give you a quick update on Momentum 2022. First of all, metrics. So our metrics task force has worked really hard over the course of the last several months to really solidify a set of metrics that we're going to use to measure our progress within Momentum 2022. Those metrics were approved by the implementation committee on February 6th. So right now, staff is working to really just refine that data and compile it in the way that really is sort of the most easily explained and put that all on a community scorecard. So stand by for that. That'll be coming soon. Also, work group actions. So all of the work groups have been meeting regularly and have really identified sort of what their initial set of actions are. And I'm just going to kind of go down through the list just to give you a snippet of what each one of these work groups is working on. So downtown in Nodo, they're actually working on a downtown in Nodo master plan. The marketing work group, they are working on a speakers bureau for Momentum 2022 to talk about the positive accomplishments and things going on in our community. The entrepreneurship work group is really taking a look at the entrepreneurial ecosystem and starting to look at programming at 712 and work through some opportunities that we have there. The economic development work group, they're actually beginning to work with the quality of place work group to really sort of identify how they feel economic development and quality of place sort of relate to one another and how those how they can work together in that realm. The Community Engagement, Pride, and Service Work Group, they have several community engagement projects in the works. They're developing a Top City, like an I Heart Top City t-shirt design campaign that'll be rolled out to the community. They're also working with Shawnee County Parks and Rec about opportunities to work with neighborhoods to sort of artfully repaint some basketball courts in the community. So that'll be a fun community engagement item. Quality of Place Work Group is starting an educational marketing campaign that's kind of twofold. So on one hand, it will help explain what some incentives that we have available in our community actually are. And then on the other hand, it will really talk about how those incentives really promote quality of place and how they enhance our community. The Talent Development Work Group, they're working to identify what kindergarten readiness programs we have in our community and what gaps there might be as well that could then be addressed through our Cradle Through Career programming. and the East Topeka Council. So the East Topeka Council will meet, I believe, next week. And when they meet, they'll actually hear a presentation regarding the East Topeka Learning Center market study and have the opportunity to provide feedback there as well. And then the capital campaign, we can't forget about the capital campaign. It's moving along very nicely. Our goal, if you remember, is $6.3 million. Current committed dollar amount is $6.18 million. That's like 98% or something that we're at. We have another $1.7 million that's pending, and we're in the process of adding another 100 plus names to call on. So that's moving along really well.
Wow.
And with that, I'll stand for any questions that you have.
Kayla, when did we kick off the capital campaign?
When did we kick it off?
Yes.
Oh, help me, Molly.
I think officially late August.
So this is a really outstanding fundraising, a real commitment from the community in such a very short period of time.
Absolutely.
Other questions regarding Momentum 2022 or what the work groups are working on or committees? Well, I look forward to, as we get to Quality Place later in the discussion, maybe having some updates on that as we come back to it.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 9, action item, Broadband Task Force request for extension of project timeline, Phase 2.
This was an item that was brought to us, and as we embarked on the broadband project, and we received some correspondence about that, and needing to have moved to Phase 2. And I think that looking at our council for we received correspondence as we needing an extension of that. Is Commissioner Bueller?
I can
Thank you.
shed a little light on it there. Yes, this is just a request to extend the project timeline. We had anticipated to do that presentation at the February meeting, but we really need just a little bit more time to bring the full broadband project management team together. That will happen in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll give a full presentation at the May JEDO meeting. It does not, there's no fees associated with this extension. Just needed a little bit more time.
Any questions about that? And then would we need then an official motion to extend that presentation?
Yes, there was an earlier item adopted requiring a report during this meeting, so you'd want to go ahead and approve moving that report to the May meeting.
So moved.
There's a motion made by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Mayor Della Isla to extend the presentation of Phase 2 of the Broadband Task Force to the May JEDO meeting. All in favor, please raise your left hand. All opposed? Show that it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our next item.
Item 10, discussion, East Topeka Learning Center project update.
Good evening. I'm here to do the East Topeka Learning Center project update. I want to start with the design and construction process. The bid for general contractors. The bid was let on February 8th of this year. The low bid came in from Champion Builders of Topeka, and we will request execution of an awarded contract in the amount of $3,183,235. Also, wanted to let you all know tonight that we had an update that Ms. Barbara's going to help me on. We are happy to report that one of our new market tax credits has come in, but I did want to give some elaboration on the expenditures that are in the amount of roughly $500,000, which includes site purchase, environmental studies and surveys, maintenance and stormwater utility, insurances, attorney fees, and support for various contracts, negotiations, and our architectural design. And use of the new market tax credits as well. And I wanted to ask Ms. Barbara if she would come and elaborate on the NMTCs. Is that okay?
Absolutely, please.
And the reason why Marcus is saying that, I'm going to give you a nice new view of what the new Marcus tax credits look like briefly, so you can see that new view while I'm talking with you. The reason why Marcus said that is because yesterday evening at 5:23 p.m. I received an email that Raza Development Fund is pleased to present this reservation agreement letter for up to $6.5 million of new Markets tax credit allocation for the East Topeka Learning Center project. They're very excited about the impact this project will have for low-income community members in East Topeka, and are happy that our consultant, Jeff, shared the project with them. They plan a visit in the near future to hear in person about the wonderful work Go Topeka and Washburn University as Washburn Tech will be doing. What that means is a lot more confusing than you all go, 6.5 million, and I've been hearing that, of course, a lot today and even yesterday evening. And I have some notes from Jeff White, who's with Columbia Capital. What that means, that's the total project amount. So they've taken into consideration the $4.5 million that you as JEDO have already committed to the project, the $1 million in gap funding that would get us to our total project cost that we've indicated of $5.5 million, and then they've taken into consideration the roughly $1 million beyond that will be the various fees, attorney's fees, those types of costs that are involved with getting new Markets tax credits. And don't ask me to get into the nitty-gritty details on those, but I can understand the overarching. So it's $6.5 million. There's approximately 39 cents on the dollar for the nominal future value of those tax credits, which equals $2.535 million. That's an estimate that Jeff gave me on the phone this afternoon. Investors are willing to pay approximately 83 cents on the dollar for that. So that means that after all is said and done, the new Markets tax credit award is approximately $2.1 million gross. From that $2.1 million gross, then you have things that are those various new Markets tax credit fees, the specific new Markets tax credits attorneys, because although our attorneys locally are great attorneys, they don't have direct experience in new Markets tax credits and working with the CDEs and the investors and the lenders, and so it requires a level of expertise. I would think Jim would probably attest that he doesn't want, or one of his colleagues probably wouldn't want to dabble in this. It's not one of those things you dabble in. So there's that approximately $1 million then that would be left that we would have to fund that $1 million gap that we had in partnership funds that we talked about previously. I say all that and I lay that foundation to indicate there's a couple different things, and it's not anything that, I mean, we can have discussion tonight, but there's not any cause for concern. That reservation letter, we do need to get back to Raza Development Fund within 7 days. There is essentially, in essence, earnest money of $32,500 that we will need to apply or provide. They will get it back to us when we complete this whole project. It actually is rolled up. It's not part of our $4 million that we have, $4.5 million we have. It's part of that, you know, in the $2.1 million gross. It's part of that $1 million that they use for those different fees. We will be presenting that and sharing that with the Go Topeka Executive Committee on Friday morning so that they can authorize that. But in essence, you all as a JEDO board have charged us with pursuing new Markets tax credits and moving forward through this. So this is literally fresh off the press. Couldn't have had it in your packet. I mean, had it at 5:30 last night. That's a lot, I know, to dump, and I know there's questions, and I see wheels turning. I don't know that I'll be able to answer those questions. I'm sharing everything that I have today, so far today.
So at this point, then, we realistically have two items that are going to have to come before JEDO very quickly.
That is correct.
One is the award of the contract that Marcus talked about, of the work to be done, and then also action item on the new market tax credits. Is that?
Well, yeah, because probably by then, we'd be responding to the reservation letter. And yes, as things kind of move forward, we're going to have to do a lot. There's a lot of different things that we'll want to have Jeff be able to explain a lot more. So, yeah.
And these are probably items that we cannot wait until May to start to accomplish.
We definitely can't wait until to award the contract for construction, because we can't in essence begin demolition or remediation or begin the remodel of the site until we have a contract with the contractor.
Jim, our best course of action then would be to call a special meeting for those two items?
Yes, that's what I would recommend. As chair, you have the authority under the operational rules to set a special meeting if that's necessary.
What about timeline and notice that needs to be given?
It would be best if you could give the same amount of notice that you would for any regular meeting of JEDO.
And so with tonight being the 28th, giving a 2-week notice, that would put us out to, what, March the 14th?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. With that, is there comments or discussions? Commissioner Archer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm trying to figure out the numbers, but one number I heard was there's $1 million in attorney's fees and overhaul.
Not just in attorney's fees. There's approximately $1 million that would be for the various fees related to the new markets tax credits, and I don't have that full breakdown.
But it's still $1 million in fees, and we're getting $2 million?
We're getting 2.1. Of that 2.1, our net is right at $1 million. We don't ever pay that money or lose that money. This is just the process.
Who's getting all this money? And why aren't we getting that? That makes no sense to me.
I'm not the new markets tax credit.
Is there any way we can have a real simple explanation with the numbers and where they're going and what we're going to benefit from? Because that just sounds outrageous to me.
Well, and we did have one back at one of the JEDOs last year. Jeff White did come and kind of give you that, what he calls New Markets Tax Credits 101. I can pull that presentation again and be able to share that.
Just like something simple, Barbara.
I understand.
That says, we're spending $1 million out in the air somewhere.
Well, we're not spending it at all. It's a moving game in terms of how they allocate an award, and then we get.
I don't think anybody on this group understands that. I have a few heads that are nodding. I really don't understand it. And a simple explanation of where the money's going and what we're doing and what we're getting, I think would be helpful. Do you agree, Mr. Chair?
Well, I think maybe just even an explanation as to the new market. We have new members of JEDO.
True.
But for the new market credits, what is the benefit in applying for a new market credit? How does that benefit the East Topeka Learning Center? How does that benefit Shawnee County and Topeka?
The benefit of the new markets tax credits, when we approved everything in terms of the project early last year, we had what was considered a funding gap of $1 million for the total project. The total project expense was calculated to be $5.5 million. That included $5.8 million with the site purchase of $240 plus the cost related to that. $4 million of that were for the construction costs in terms of both remediation as well as construction and design. And then the other $1.5 million was for the partnership funds of $500,000 per year for 3 years for Washburn University to be able to kind of begin kind of that operational, get it kicked off in the first 3 years. We found that there were, and we were advised that there were new markets tax credits dollars that would fund gaps if you had a funding gap in terms of a total project. We had the project developed for the Learning Center, but we didn't have necessarily all the funds that were approved. You all approved the 4.5, which was the first year of partnership funds, but not years 2 and 3 of partnership funds, so that we could pursue alternative funding opportunities such as these new market tax credits. That's been kind of a long time coming in terms of you put that out there, you say, hey, are you interested in our project? Do you like it? Does it appeal to you? That being said, that $1 million, we're in essence receiving $1 million to be able to meet the balance of JEDO's commitment in the agreement that they have with Washburn University to conduct this East Topeka Learning Center, receiving those funds that you don't have to pull as the JEDO organization, that you don't have to pull from sales tax dollars. You don't have to put $1 million of sales tax dollars into those partnership funds. You can use new markets tax credits now.
And this is what's going to be presented to the Go Topeka Board of Directors?
The executive committee is going to have the reservation letter presented to them, and Jeff will answer questions for them on Friday morning. And then he is available by phone. You'd mentioned March 14th. He is available by phone. He's actually off the mainland on March 14th, but he would be able to dial in and be able to talk to you that way.
I think maybe it would be beneficial for all of our JEDO board members, voting and non-voting, to have information on that breakdown, that financial breakdown of how does this make financial sense? What are our administrative fees? What are our costs? And how does this benefit the East Topeka Learning Center? And I think that's what I'm seeing across the board.
All of those administrative fees and all of those costs are rolled up into that projection that's there. We don't have to come up with any of that. It's part of what is allocated to us to then even pay back. But we still get a net of $1 million.
Commissioner Archer?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. But if I understand it, you're still talking about there's $2.1 million out there, and we're getting less than half of that. We got to negotiate a better deal than that. We got to get a better deal than that. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And so then other questions. If we came back on March the 14th, it would be the action item of the board as to whether or not to issue the new market or not.
To proceed forward with it, yes.
Okay. If I could, again, with our timelines being somewhat constrained, looking at groundbreaking and moving forward with East Topeka Learning Center, is there an objection to looking at having a special meeting on March the 14th at 6 o'clock for those two items, unless there are any other new business ventures that may be coming back for approval too, looking to Molly Howie. But for those two items specifically on the approval of the awards of the construction and the pursuit of a new market tax credit. Mr. Emerson.
Thank you, Commissioner Cook. Barbara, if I could we also find out, do we have any options? I mean, are the people presenting us this offer, if you will, are they the only ones we can get this from? Is this a normal, I mean, like Commissioner Archer is saying, I too was astounded. I mean, I know this is a good news story, the net, but, you know, we have to be good stewards. I mean, those tax credits are federal dollars, which we all pay as well. So there's no free lunch here.
It is actually a good news. I understand it. It's very confusing. I get it. That's why anytime when I talk with Jeff, you know, I say, are you going to be available throughout the life of this? Because we're going to continue to need to know, you know, what do we need to do on a reporting basis, on an annual basis, all those types of things. He's with us for the long haul. He's our consultant throughout the entire process, not just, okay, you've got the funds and great, here you go. I would say in this case, this is a very good option. Rosas Development Fund, they like to focus on Hispanic serving institutions. They like to really look at where that impacts low income, just like what they talked about in the email that I read to you. They also, and I was looking for Jeff's email to that effect, but I didn't find it, but they also like to, and they don't have a lot of requirements in this. We're able to have some pretty decent flexibility. I know as you'll hear about it in the future, you'll probably think there are a lot of requirements, but honestly, there's not. There was another one that he was talking to at the same time, and they have union requirements related to the construction of it, which of course you understand would give us a whole other sort of a concern and trying to figure those things out. So there can be some pretty heavy requirements, and in this instance he indicates that there's not. There's really a lot of flexibility. He did indicate that their fees are a little higher than he would have liked, but they're not as high as some of them that you could see. There are those with fees that, you know, you could be looking at, you'd receive $700,000 of that $2.1 million, which I know blows your mind. I completely understand, but it's actually, it's one of the better ones. It's the best one, the best offer that we have.
So Chairman, if I
Councilman Emerson.
Thank you, Barbara, for that. I guess, but my question will be, prior to the 14th, will we have what our policy options are? If I guess I don't want to get to the 14th if that's the night we meet, or the 16th or whatever that date was, but where it's a take it or leave it deal. I guess, will we know prior to that what the options are we have?
I don't know that there's entirely a whole bunch of options necessarily. I think, in the agreement, it outlines the various things that there are. We can know that. I can request of Jeff that if he can kind of get us a snapshot, maybe 1-page or 2-page document that we can incorporate into the packet that week prior.
Thank you.
Councilman Lester.
Thank you. I would also like to know, could I get a copy of the bid results as well as the proposed construction contract?
I believe so. Copy of the bid results and the construction.
Yeah, I would try to
I can. Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Could we have that for everyone? I think that's
Certainly.
a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mayor DeLisla.
Good point.
We were discussing just now that on the same date that we're proposing, on the 14th, we have the City of Topeka open house for the budget. And we wanted to ensure that if we were to have the meeting, that we would allow, it's an event in which the council members are invited to come and go and interact with the constituents. So if we were to schedule a meeting, then the thought would be to at least provide the council members an hour and 15 minutes to be able to schedule that time to interact with their constituents, so that then if we have to recess into a meeting here, we at least would have enough time to be there for our constituency.
So what time then would be a good time to start?
5:30.
No, we start at 5:30. I think that 6:30, 6:45.
Would 6:30 work for all members then? I see
Council members?
thumbs up. Okay.
One other thing I did want to mention, Marcus reminded me, we did have another CDE. That's what Raza Development Fund is. We had another CDE in January indicate that they had decided that if they received new markets tax credits from the federal government to award, that they would select this project as one of the awards that they would do. They didn't receive the funding. So it's a very interesting kind of a dynamic that I can't say that any of us entirely understand. That's why we have a consultant that is working on this for us. So, but there's several of those types of, you were asking about various other opportunities. We've had one that they would have given it to us, but they didn't have the funds.
I just don't like these trust me deals.
I'm not trying to say trust me. That's why I want Jeff to talk with you.
Good.
No.
Okay. Well, with that then, we're looking at then a special JEDO meeting on March the 14th, 6:30 in the councilman chambers for those two items, unless there is any other items of special economic development that will have arisen in that very, very short period of time, meaning between tonight and tomorrow when we send out the notice. So, then thank you very much. If there are questions while we have Marcus and Barbara here, any other questions regarding the East Topeka Learning Center project or its development or where it stands? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we have as a Momentum 2022 policy, a active meeting policy, which means we stand to reduce our sedentary lifestyle. Apparently, we need to stretch a little bit. At this time, we brought some snacks and some water. So please come grab a snack and water. And I have Molly starting a video for discussion that was presented at the Greater Topeka Partnership Luncheon.
Topeka's a great place to live. It really is.
Topeka is where I always wanted to be. I didn't see a need to go anywhere else. I love everything about this community.
There was something very rich about coming to Topeka to be a part of Brown versus Board of Education National Historic Site.
I realized that the more places I went to and got to explore, the more I wanted to be back home, which is here in Topeka.
We've been here 5 years now, and we're having a wonderful time raising our family. It's a great place to raise a family.
Topeka is a place where you can find your people. So maybe you move here for work, or maybe you move here for family, but when you get here, you find the people that want to do interesting things with you. And maybe you're interested in 712 Innovations downtown, or maybe you're interested in coming to the trivia night at the library, or starting a book club. I'm excited about all of the fun things I can do with my kids in Topeka. There's always something going on.
Want to get away from traffic? Move to Topeka. Want a great community? Move to Topeka. Want an opportunity to be part of substantial change? Move to Topeka.
It is a fantastic opportunity to be a woman in Topeka. We are making incredible strides with the Women Initiative, Women of Influence. The need was instantaneous, and we had hundreds of women from the get-go.
Momentum 2022 brings people together, and when we move together and we work together, we make a difference together.
I need Momentum 2022 to make our city great so that we can help our customers and our citizens succeed.
You know, what I see of Topeka in the future is a place where people can come and thrive for employment, but also just living. It is about a place of being safe.
Being at the table is probably the most exciting part of Momentum 2022. It is a diverse group of people, and the energy is electric.
I'm passionate because our city has a lot of potential, and a lot of individuals don't realize just how much power they really have. I tell the high schoolers that there's a lot of opportunities in our city, and that the future can be very exciting right here.
As Topeka started back in 1954, being the haven for hard conversation, I hope going forward as our country grows and as we move forward, that Topeka is looked at as the one to lead the rest of the nation.
There's a reason why our plan is called Momentum 2022. It's because there's so much energy and excitement, and it's really hard to find in other cities.
We need you. We want you here. We don't claim to have all the answers, and we know you have gifts, skills, abilities that you bring that we want and we welcome.
What we see on the West Coast and East Coast, they say, tends to filter in. I want to show that it's what the Midwest has, and we filter out.
In pursuing Momentum 2022, we're going to become the capital city that every other city is going to aspire to be.
So again, we adopted an active meeting policy as part of a healthier lifestyle. It's a Momentum 2022, but it's also part of our community health improvement plan, trying to improve how we hold our meetings, knowing that there's a time when we need to get up, stretch a little bit. Where we're at now, Madam Clerk, for next item.
Item 11, discussion, quality of place and economic development.
As you may recall, in our last JEDO meeting, and it's reflected in the minutes, there was a discussion of the 2018 cash carry forward agreement. And in that cash carry forward agreement, there was a discussion of setting aside funds for quality of place. And we had just touched briefly on that. In preparation for this JEDO meeting, I've had an opportunity to meet with many of you. Mayor Della Isla and I sat down over a series of meetings to talk about what is this quality of place, which is why we had wanted to provide the snacks and the water. We're going to have a little bit more of this as a discussion item. This is not an action item, but this is an opportunity for all of us as JEDO members to talk about this item of what is quality of place. Does it have a place in economic development, or does it not have a place in our economic development plan? And so that we can engage in that discussion before we adopt any policy. It would be my hope that after tonight's discussion, we're able to take these ongoing comments and craft them into a policy that we would propose to review in the May meeting. And so in that time, we would take official action on whether or not quality of place is an economic development item or not. I've invited a number of people to step forward and maybe give us a little bit of a comment about how quality of place factors into economic development. And I would just ask if Ryan Kavanaugh would be able to come up first and introduce yourself, a little bit who you are and how quality of place factors into the economic development.
Absolutely. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today about quality of place. My name is Ryan Kavanaugh, and I'm with my partners Dusty Sneathen and his wife Melissa Sneathen. And as of 2 weeks ago, we were humbled and honored to have won the Top Tank competition. Now, Brewbank is an upscale pub, and we are committed to community. So instead of many small tables, we will have large tables to promote people to gather and to create memories and friendships and to really build community in the downtown area. I mean, we are in a really exciting time in Topeka because we're on the verge of a renaissance, especially downtown. Now, why we chose Topeka? Well, actually, that was why we came up with the plan in the first place. We were talking about how there's no place to go like Brewbank in Topeka. And so we waited for somebody else to create it, and nobody did. So we thought, well, why don't we do it? So we came up with our business plan. We're all native Topekans. We have spent a lot of time in Topeka, and we just didn't want to have to go to a place like Lawrence or go to Kansas City. We want to stay in our hometown. We want to be here and enjoy what Brewbank has to offer. Brewbank is going to have a stage where we will have local and regional acts with music. We'll have stand-up comedy. We're going to do trivia nights. We even have Saturday mornings for kids-only karaoke, which a lot of that will be happening. But we want to bring the community together and make it a place that's a destination for people to come here. Now, as I said, we wanted to open our business in Topeka. But what we didn't know was how Topeka was going to be so amazing to us and our business. With Go Topeka, 712, Forge, the Washington University Small Business Center, we have just been completely blown away at the amount of attention, the amount of support, the amount of things that are available to people who want to bring a small business to Topeka, who want to drive other businesses in this area to downtown. One of the biggest blessings in my life is that my parents have always told me from the time I was a little kid, you can do anything you put your mind to. And we honestly feel like that is what Topeka is saying to us. You can do anything. This idea started on a napkin and has come to fruition, and we hope to be one of the first and only places in the state that offers digital self-serve taps, where you can go and pour your own beer per ounce and create a community environment where we not only have a community within the walls of our establishment, but create community throughout the downtown area and make it a destination. So people are leaving Lawrence to come to Topeka. People are coming from Kansas City to come to Topeka. This is the future of Topeka, and we couldn't be more excited to be a part of it. And we just wanted to thank everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations on the award of winning the Top Tank. I think that speaks highly, and we look forward to the development as you come forward with the idea, even moving forward into the business plan.
Yeah.
Now, quality of place. How does quality of place affect a business such as yours in starting up a new business?
Well, the quality of place for us is like downtown is starting to grow and there's already businesses coming in, and we want to be a unique place in an area like a third space where people go after work and they find community. They come from miles around because there aren't places like it in their towns or in their cities. And we knew that Topeka was ready for us, and we knew that we were ready to be a part of what it has to offer downtown, especially after all the renovations that have been put in. I mean, it's just waiting for someone to flip the switch, and so we hope that we can help do that.
Other questions? Again, this is an opportunity. Councilman Padilla.
Not a question at all, but to compliment you again, as the chair did on winning. I think it's great. I love your enthusiasm. And when you said the word renaissance, that's one of the reasons I ran for council, because I think you're right. The city is right at the brink of really taking off, and I appreciate you bringing your business to Topeka. Thank
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Kane Davis.
Good evening. How's everybody?
Great.
I was asked to speak about the quality of place and its relationship to economic development. And when I think of that, I really do think of an acronym, called DAWN, which for me means diversity, attraction, work, diversity, attraction, what was my W? Weekends and after hours, along with network. And for diversity, if you have good economic development, you get people from all over the world. My wife, Shini, over there, she's from India. I am in Topeka because of her. And then when you look at attraction, you attract people with every level of skill set. And that skill set actually attract businesses and investors who look at this community. As it relates to weekends and after hours, I work very hard, but I do enjoy my weekends and after hours. And I would love to go to places that I can enjoy. I would love to be able to contribute more to nonprofit organizations. And if we have businesses come in here, we have more resources to support nonprofit organizations, more people interested in supporting nonprofit organizations. And then lastly, the network aspect of it. You have just so many people locally and regionally who looks at a community. But I'm in the business where metrics drive so much. Nationally and internationally, you have people who can get on the internet and look and see what's happening in Topeka. And our last speaker talked about the community, and something that I look at is the community feel. For investors, if it feels like it, they're going to inquire more, and they may eventually end up being here. You asked the last speaker some questions specifically about how does it affect me.
Yes.
I started a leadership program here called Strategic Leadership here in Topeka just a few months ago. And it's really designed to assist minorities with understanding leadership and how executive thinks so that they can actually contribute more in their work environment, but also understand how and why they need to invest in the community by being more active in the community, serving on boards. And I also, my wife and I own a small property management firm. Now the examples that I have is, in my property management firm, I have a guy, a young man, about 25. He called me this Monday and said, hey, I'm leaving Topeka. And I know from previous conversations with him, he has spent a lot of his time going to Wichita and Kansas City for weekends and evenings. And last night when I met with him, it was the same sentiments. I love Topeka. He's a he graduated 2 years ago from K-State as an engineering student. And I looked at that and said, man, here's a guy who was going to make a lot of money or a decent salary in this community. He was going to have a family here. And that family just have it rolls out and can do a whole lot of things in this community, depending on what that family ends up being. And in the leadership program, I have a young attorney who came to this community, went to our local law school, graduated, and in conversation with her, her big question and concern was, because I asked everyone, what's your plan? And in this class, the majority of the people are not lifelong Topekans. The majority of them came here to go to school, I think want to stay here, but they are concerned about, I have a life. They're not 60 like me. They want to do some other things. But this young attorney voiced to me that she hopes she can stay in Topeka. And she talked about the last community she lived in, about how much was downtown for young people. So for me, those two examples really shows me how economic development really does make a difference in quality of place.
All right. Questions for Kane and how it affects our young people. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Patrick Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of JEDO. As he said, my name is Patrick Woods. I'm the Director of Talent Management and Diversity at Westar Energy. I also in my nightlife, moonlight as a board member for the Topeka Public Schools Board of Education. I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I was asked to talk about workforce development specifically, how it relates to quality of life and quality of place specifically when you start talking about that. So I get a chance in my job to do some pretty interesting things and have some interesting conversations with a lot of really talented young people. I get to go to our local institutions of higher education. I get to go to a few that are in different places and try to attract and recruit students from non-traditional backgrounds, from all kinds of places. We want all the talent we can possibly get. It's pretty interesting. I'm always surprised the sophistication of these students when I talk to them. One of the things that they really want to know, that really appeals to them, and they've kind of actually many times done some research if it's something where they may be connected to our industry because of their academic discipline, they will ask me quality of life type of questions. You know, they want to go to a community where there is a rich, vibrant urban core. So everybody is really excited about kind of the city feel and all the things that you can do to invest in your urban core. The suburban life for most of these young professionals to be, you know, hasn't really grown that appeal just yet. So definitely an attaboy and attagirl to all of you all for your investments in downtown redevelopment. That's a really attractive thing. I never will forget being on the campus of Langston University and having a student, Langston's in Oklahoma, it's a historically black college, having a student talk to me about downtown redevelopment in Topeka. Now, he just happened to also be studying like urban planning or something like that, so it was important to him academically, but the fact that he knew what was going on in Topeka, Kansas, and suddenly that appealed. People want that. They especially want to see development when you're talking about your non-traditional or underrepresented candidates. They want to see some development in areas of the community where maybe it's been lacking historically. So the East Topeka Learning Center, which you just heard about, I am, for both hats I wear, I guess, thrilled about that. I think it's a wonderful investment. You are to be commended for your wisdom because I think what you're going to see is a community that's ready to take hold of that, and I mean, there could be nothing bad that comes from that, right? Also, on the other side, for your workers to be, I think it's incredibly important that we recognize that there is a tremendous role in economic development and in quality of life for our K-12 institutions to play. So while the majority of the responsibility for that falls to our state and to our local districts, I think it's really important to recognize that you all have an opportunity often to partner with your local districts in doing things that are going to prepare students for the 21st century workforce and to be competitive and with their new competition, which is no longer like it was when I was a kid, where you're competing against, you know, Oklahomans or Nebraskans or whatever. It's global now. So a couple of things that come to mind where I know there have been very fruitful partnerships, and this is with the business community as well. We've seen for the Topeka Center for Advanced Learning and Careers, which actually is slated to open later this academic year, and their initial classes will start being taught there next academic year. It's a pretty exciting thing. Basically, it's an advanced studies center where students in all kinds of different disciplines will be able to come, do some projects that are kind of like project-based learning, integrating all kinds of different disciplines, and actually work in partnership with businesses to try to solve some of the issues that they're facing. So that's a pretty exciting thing that gives students real-world experience. I think it also helps them understand that there's a whole lot that they can do and they can be when they grow up right here in Topeka, and they don't have to go to any of the other communities to do that. So while we know that your investments are definitely important, and it's critically important if we want to attract the kind of talent that's going to help us win the future when we talk about the 21st century. We also know that other things that businesses do and partnerships, and any kind of influence that you can have with them is very important. They've got a lot they can do, the business community. And obviously, I'm a little biased, but I just happen to think that some of the great things that we do at Westar Energy could be replicated by many other businesses who would like to remake themselves as us in our wisdom. But but with that, I'd be more than happy to stand for any questions. And
Patrick, with you working with Westar and you serving on the school board, where does quality of place enter into attracting a family to come to Topeka or stay in Topeka? How does that factor into that conversation?
Well, you mean when we're recruiting employees?
Yes.
So it's a big deal. People nowadays, it seems like, and it's not just millennials, but you'll have people. We'll recruit people who are mid-career folks, established, who will actually find the place they think they want to live and look at that zip code and then start looking for the kinds of employers that are going to have the jobs that they could actually work in and earn a living. It starts typically with the place that they feel like they can see themselves. And so they want some of the things that you heard from the speakers just before me. So economic development, as he said, you're going to be able to attract people with all kinds of skills, and folks are going to want to come to your community when there's growth, when there's development. Most people nowadays, especially with millennials, they typically want it to be equitably shared growth. They don't want a dead side of the community and a booming side of the community. Obviously, education, if you're a young family, that's kind of your core issue. That's the big thing that you want, for your kids to have it better than you did. So,
questions for Patrick? Thank you very much.
I was admonished to be brief, so I'll let the record show that I think I made it in 4 minutes.
Thank you very much. Angel Romero.
Good evening, everybody. So like Patrick, I was also admonished to be brief by people who know me very well. So this is a topic that I get very excited about, so I've made notes to keep myself on track. But as they said, my name is Angel Romero. I work for United Way of Greater Topeka, and also have the pleasure to be the chair-elect of the Forward Young Professionals organization for this year. It's an organization that you got to hear a little bit from Gabe about, that's doing a lot of really exciting things for our under 40 population in the community. So when they asked me today to talk about kind of what quality of place and quality of life means for myself as a young person, I started thinking through my experiences and kind of how I got to Topeka and what made me want to stick around. I came here for college. I came here from Junction City and came here to attend Washburn, and I kind of drank the Kool-Aid after that and got hooked on this place and wanted to stick around. And so I started thinking about, I had a great experience at Washburn, loved my time at Washburn University, but it was through those experiences I started having being involved in the community that I really started to get hooked on what this place was all about. And when I started thinking about what were those things that really got me hooked, what were those things that really kind of piqued my interest and curiosity, there were 4 things that kind of came to mind. The things that I thought were really important when it came to quality of life. The first one was community pride. I want to be part of a community, and I think my peers want to be part of a community that's proud of itself, and that takes pride in what they're doing and takes pride in what's happening in that community. And you see that all around the United States. You see that even in this state. When you look at other cities that surround us, people are really proud of what's happening in their community. And it doesn't mean that those communities are perfect and that they don't have problems and challenges, because no city is perfect and everyone's got issues of this, that, and the other thing. But people can still take pride in their community. And that was something that was huge for me, is I want to be able to live in a city that people are proud to call home and that people are proud of the things that are happening here. I get to sit on the Community Engagement and Pride subgroup for Momentum 2022. And one of the things that we've talked about is the issues that we have with our own self-pride. And we talked about before that, actually, those of you that got to attend the Partnership's annual meeting heard Lindsay Freeman say that our biggest challenge to community pride is ourselves. But if our biggest problem is ourselves, it means our greatest solution is ourselves. So while I think that we have a challenge there, I think we also have the solution. And I think we're seeing it by steps that governing bodies are taking and that businesses are taking and that people are taking to say that there are really exciting things happening in this community. And we need to be proud of them. We need to be vocal about that. And I think that kind of success begets more success. And as we see that start happening, we're going to see more and more people starting to do that. But I think having a strong message about the great things that are going on in this community, not being afraid to say it, and not being afraid to acknowledge that we still have challenges that we want to address, but there are a lot of really great things to be proud of too. I think both those messages can happen at the same time. And so that was one of the first things that I thought about when I thought about kind of what quality of place meant to me. Of course, as one of those under 40-somethings, I want to live in a place that's fun. I want to live in a place where I can have a good time, where I know that I can enjoy myself, where people that come to visit me can enjoy themselves. But what that really means for me is I want a place that's unique and different. With no disrespect to chain restaurants out there, I can go to a Chili's or an Applebee's in any community. I can go to a shopping mall in any community, and they're great places. But I want to go to a place that only Topeka has. And I want to go to those places that are cool and are unique and that I can brag about when I have people from out of town come to visit, where I know I'm not going to find any other place. And I think that's been one of the most exciting things that's happened in the last 5-6 years, to see this kind of explosion in growth downtown and even around the community with things like the Brew Bank and things like breweries that have sprouted up around town. There's lots of exciting momentum behind new businesses and new projects that are really helping to enhance that quality of life. And I think it's one of those things that success begets success. And as people see those things starting to happen, it'll spur more growth in the community. But the more things that we can call our own, and the more things that don't look like any other place is where I want to be. And those are the things that I want to be a part of. Again, it gets to that community pride when we can say we have a really cool city because we have Brew Bank, because we have these really cool places you're not going to find anywhere else. That was really important to me. And when I start thinking about the ways I want to enjoy the community, the ways that I want to celebrate, things like that, all came back to finding those places that are really cool and really unique in our community. Patrick sort of hit on this a little bit too, but diversity was something that I found really important to me. Is one of the we have 4 pillars in the Forge organization. One of those is diversity and inclusion. I want to be part of a community that not only has diversity, but also values that in lots of ways. And so that means through policies from government bodies, that means through organizations, that means through the way our community acts and operates. I value wanting to see diversity and being able to be exposed to people from different cultures, people from different religions, different walks of life, being able to experience that, which is one of those things that, again, I think Topeka has an abundance we don't always talk about. But we have such a diverse community, and that's where I think a lot of our strength is as a community, is being able to bring out that diverse, and where you have people from so many different parts of our community that can come together. But again, that takes both policies, investments from our businesses, from organizations that are willing to invest in that work, but then it also takes work outside of that too. So I think that there's things that happen in both arenas to be able to further that. And then another thing that I'll piggyback off of Patrick was we value as young people, especially as millennials, there's a lot of research into what we're thinking about and what we care about. And one of the things that you've likely heard is that we care about issues affecting other people, that we want to live in a community that cares about its neighbors, that cares about people in our community. We value things like equality and inclusion. And this is something that's near and dear to my heart, not only as a young professional, as someone that works for a nonprofit organization, and knowing that this is our one community that we all inhabit together. And so how can we grow stronger as a community together? And that's reflected through how we invest in our community, making sure that there's fair and equitable funding for all parts of our community. It looks at business investment from the private sector and how are businesses investing in their community and how are we supporting all sides of our community growing together. And that is, I say all that like it's really easy, and I know it's not. But there's lots of work to be done and lots of good work that needs to happen in that area. And I think there's a recognition among a lot of other people that's something that needs to happen in our community. But are we as a community supporting policies and supporting investment in our community that's making this a great place to live for everybody? Are we giving everyone a chance to reach success and to lead successful lives? That's something as a young professional that I really care a lot about, and how we support each other in this community is something that I really value. I said it before, but Topeka is not a perfect city, and I don't think any city is perfect. But we shouldn't let us stop that from investing in things that are going to help move our city forward and taking pride in those things that are going to help move our city forward. So again, if our biggest problem is ourselves, it's our biggest opportunity. And so that's why I just encourage people to think about and to remember. And then I'm really excited personally for the next 10, 20 years to see what happens. I think when you look within Forge, there are so many exciting things that are happening. There are people that are thinking about this city in different ways. It's always exciting to meet our members who come to events who are from outside communities and say, I never knew Topeka had X, Y, and Z. I never thought about staying here until X, Y, and Z happened. So there's a lot of really exciting momentum there. And I think now is a chance to really kind of seize on that momentum.
Thank you. Any questions for Angela? Thank you very much. Kurt Kuda.
Good evening. I was told to be long. and maybe because I don't speak as fast as Angel. But my task that I was given was to maybe frame the quality of place around Momentum 2022. And so I brought up a prop. Everybody talks about it. You got a lot of reports on it tonight. It's our roadmap. It's our strategy. Many people up here and also in the room have served on the steering committees, now the implementation committee, and some work groups. And there's even more paper than this that went into it. And where we're at now, and I'm also on the work group that you got a short report on before, the quality of place work group. And so I guess that's how I drew the straw tonight. Okay. A lot of discussion on what holistic economic development means, with holistic probably being the key word. A lot of discussion then on what that means. And I think what we're talking about tonight is trying to define what quality of place means and where it fits. And one of the early meetings we had with Market Street when we were going through the steering committee was a discussion on what's this all about. And one of our facilitators came right out and said, he goes, this is really a battle for and the quest for attracting and retaining people and talent in your community, to have them choose to work, live, thrive, and enjoy your community. Without that, you don't grow. And if you don't grow, you don't attract new companies. And then what you have for your existing community institutions, they usually become negatively impacted. And from that would be existing companies, existing businesses, the government, schools, our nonprofits, churches, and more. And that comment really kind of hit me. And it stuck with me, and I think it impacted a lot of the other group, and we really started to focus a lot of our discussion and work around that. So with that, I kind of took a look at the strategy framework that was provided again in our roadmap, again using my prop. And right on page 3, right after it goes through some of the introductory preamble, it goes in to say, as an assessment, Topeka and Shawnee County's talent pool is threatened by factors such as persistent net outmigration and relatively small gains in educational attainment. If the status quo holds, the community's workforce is likely to become smaller and less competitive. Changing this trajectory will require a multifaceted approach. When I saw that, it was the old game of economic development, the rules of economic development that I've been involved in other organizations probably don't apply anymore. We have to look at things differently. The plan goes on to say the community must improve its ability to produce homegrown talent and offer the kind of quality of place, amenities, downtown, social offerings, aesthetics, housing options, attractions, etc., that educated and skilled individuals demand. My comment is, and to keep them here. Investments in talent and quality of place must therefore be seen as crucial parts of a holistic approach to economic development. It's right in our plan saying it's married right to it. Other parts of this goes on to say the public input that they had, as you recall, everything from focus groups, online surveys, our steering committee, other big forums, if you will, pulling people in. They came out to say, similar to what some of the other presenters said, that Topeka and Shawnee County suffer from deep and persistent low morale. Expanding economic opportunities and improving quality of place can go a long way towards improving these perceptions. Again, it's throughout this. Going on then to page 15, there's some more feedback. It says, on the matter on how to attract and retain talent, stakeholders contacted through all the public input processes said one of the most important things the community needs to do is improve quality of place. Okay, tied into economic development. Try not to read this all to you because I'm sure you've read it several times, right? One thing that did strike me when I reviewed it, and it was lost on me, it said of all the primary jobs in the community that pay at least $40,000, and that's our target when you guys see the incentives come in, right? So 40,000 above, we want to see those type of jobs. 40% are held by individuals that live outside of our community. So the 12 jobs that you all approved that we hope we get, 5 of them outside the community. Just tonight, okay? Some other things that came out of that is that Topeka and Shawnee County generally lack the type of mixed-use live, work, play environments and attractions that are increasingly in demand, especially from young professionals. I'll even say young family and middle-aged people like myself, okay? So that's just from the plan. Now, as we get into our work group, and when they started to, first of all, say, well, are you willing to serve on the implementation committee? Absolutely. I believe in what we're doing. Are you willing to serve on a committee? Sure. Which one you want to be in? Tell me where you want me. They go, oh, Kurt, you can chair the quality of place work. I got to learn to start saying no more often. We got into this and we started to tackle several things because, again, we're trying to define something. And some of these things are big. They're big, they're broad in range, and quite frankly, it takes a lot of funding. And so just to give you a flavor of some of the things we're talking about, it was reported on briefly before. One of them is to provide some education that can be used throughout our community for traditional incentives, TIF, CID, STAR bonds, et cetera, that people better understand how these programs work, along with the risks of those programs. Those type of programs are tried and true public-private partnerships that I think are going to be needed in order for us to improve our quality of place. All right, but not everybody understands how they work, and there is risk. So we felt that we needed to maybe bring some education forward so we don't have to fight that battle every time we have an opportunity. We want to have the green light on and the welcome mat on for the private dollars that are going to come in, but that doesn't mean it's an automatic yes, right? But trying to make sure that we're all behind and understand what's going on. I'm not going to answer any new market tax credits. That's not part of what we're talking about, okay? But that's something that we feel might be able to help us, not only with the first deal, but the second, the third, and hopefully several that come on. And we talk about where are these people going to live if we actually attract them here. Certainly, again, private investment, whether it be for single-family residence or multifamily as part of it. But then there's also some things that we need to figure out how we can work with some programs for existing stock to improve existing properties or repairs, as well as promote some of the programs that are already out there, whether they be through our governmental agencies or city or some of the nonprofits to promote so people can use those and make sure that we're leveraging that. We barely even touched on our subject of affordable housing. I saw recently there was a forum on that we're short on that supply to the tune of about 6,000 units. Where does that fit in quality of place? Okay, infrastructure, big topic for quality of place. And we're talking everything from street repairs, sidewalks, bike paths, bikeways, parks, the facilities in the parks. We're even talking about better traffic light flow, so the traffic moves fairly fast. How do you fund that out of the $6 million we're going to hopefully raise from Momentum 2022? That's a city and county government issue. How do we tie that in? We figured out that blight's an issue in our group. If you guys weren't aware, we got some blight, and then we said, do we own blight? for this Momentum 2022, and everybody's hands went down, but we said, well, someone can't ignore it. So then we started to talk about code enforcement. Cities come out with a code enforcement program. How can that best be supported? We need that. More on blight. My goodness, I don't know where it stops and starts, from home ownerships to landlords to commercial properties that are not being used or maintained properly. Do we consider promoting a land bank? What do you do with that land after you bring it in? That's all being discussed. And then we talked about some other things as far as gateways, leading people to the attractions we have today and hopefully have more tomorrow. How can they find those? How can they find our neighborhoods and even the east exit off of the interstate? Big deal. And one of my members, we left the last Momentum 2022 deal. I go, my head is just kind of hurting. It's kind of big because a lot of this, how do you fund it? You know, some of it, again, is in the general budget. Some of the other things we talked about at the last meeting here is, you know, we have some carryover money. Is that now, if we can get to the point where we're talking about quality of life and how that impacts economic development, how it impacts the growth of our community, is that a source we need to start talking about? Well, I think we have to understand how this all fits in first. So that's kind of where we're at. You know, many of these things are taking place, these conversations have taken place in our committee meetings. I guarantee you they're taking place in the community. Mm-hmm. And so I do appreciate you having this conversation tonight and being open to the various points of view.
Any questions for Kurt? Thank you very much for your work, and thank you for saying yes and not no. Cody Foster.
Good evening. Just a couple quick comments before I actually get into the comments that I put together. First, this is my first JEDO meeting. So I sit in meetings all day, so I do my best to avoid them anytime it's outside of work. But, you know, I've probably never been accused of being a pessimist. And, you know, sitting here and observing just all the awesome things and hearing Ryan and the Brewbank team, you know, and sitting through that top tank and seeing the 10 finalists and how passionate they are about Topeka right now and the good things that are going on is pretty neat to see. So I'm glad I came to the meeting. Second, you know, all of you are to be commended because from a leadership standpoint, to see the progress that we've made in the last, just even the last few years is a credit to that. And the fact that you're open to and having this discussion around quality of life, as I think you've heard from a lot of people, which is a big deal right now in our community, and it's a topic that's being discussed, but to have you all discussing it from a leadership and economic development standpoint, I think is really important. So I appreciate your leadership on that. So I'm representing 3 different roles as I talk about this. Despite the fact that I don't like meetings, I got talked into being the chairman of the Greater Topeka Partnership Board. And this is a topic that's been brought up in every single board meeting we've had so far as we've combined the different organizations and as I've met with the chair and chair-elects of the different member organizations. The second role I'm representing is a business owner who has about 500 employees here in Topeka. We're planning to hire somewhere between 90 to 100 more this year. We have been able to relocate people from other parts of the country here. One of the things that we like to say a lot is that we feel like we've built a destination employer. We're kind of a destination employer that we can bring people in. The challenge that we've started to have is sometimes Topeka is not viewed as a destination location. I was reminded of that in the last month. We had 2 younger gentlemen who moved here, one from Chicago, one from Indianapolis. We encourage everybody, unlike some places, we don't encourage our employees to live outside of Topeka. We actually encourage them to live in Topeka. And both of these guys, both under 30, both lived in Topeka for a year. They both moved to Lawrence in the last month because they don't feel like there's a lot of things to do. So it leads a little bit to the third role that maybe I'm representing, and that's as a quality of life investor that currently has about $30 million in projects going on downtown, one of which is opening in 16 days. Just shameless plug there for that one. But I do say it for a reason, because the amount of excitement over that opening that we've had is unbelievable. Just the people that have reached out and are excited about that opening. So, and I'm going to talk about that last one, but tie it back into probably the second point. So nobody's really asked me, but the primary reason I've decided to make some investments in what I would call these quality of life projects is because it was getting harder and harder for us to attract great talent as we continue to grow. And I think when you hear some of the numbers of the unemployment rate that we have and how low that it is, this is a conversation that a lot of CEOs around town are having. Like, we're all starting to compete for a lot of the same people. So I think I realized that if we were going to grow the population of employees, that we had to do some things to address what tends to be the number one topic. But let me share, I actually wanted to do some actual like economic development research for you all. So at Advisors Excel, of our top 50 income earners in the year 2017, 21 of them do not live in Topeka. Those 21 represent $14 million in income in 2017. Now, to be fair, 9 of those 21 do live in Shawnee County. So Silver Lake, I think we employ half of Silver Lake and Rossville. Rossville's not technically in Shawnee County, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Okay, so they live between those two, which leaves 12 of those 21 that live in either Lawrence or kind of the Kansas City area. Those 12 represent almost $8 million in income in the 2017 year. So I sat down with all 21 of those in preparation for this, and I asked them, I said, why do you not live in Topeka? What's the number one reason? So number one reason, quality of life, that there's nothing to do in Topeka. When you compare it to Lawrence or Kansas City, that there's just a lot more options, be that dining. I mean, the list kind of went on from things that there were to do there. That was the number one answer for 9 of the 12 that chose to live in Lawrence or the Kansas City area. Number 2 answer was crime. Number 3 answer was the schools. The schools was a big topic on the Shawnee County people, the people that live in Silver Lake or Rossville. The schools was something that came up a lot. So I think one of the things I saw as we started talking about making some investments is we're in a vicious cycle. Kurt kind of talked about it too. When 40% of your top income earners choose to head out of town and spend their money there, that's just the cycle that keeps us from moving forward as a community. So I think looking at economic development from the standpoint of how do we improve the number one thing that is preventing people from not just working here, but also living here and spending their money here is a really important topic from that standpoint. So I think we have the potential to make a huge impact, whether it's that we earn or get some of those people to move back into this community, or whether it's we just quit letting people leave here because we do address some of the reasons they tell us they're leaving. That's a really great opportunity. So those were some of the, I think, actual numbers that I saw from an economic development impact. And as we continue to grow or try to grow, some of the challenges that we face as a business. Now, I'll kind of end my comments by saying this. Quality of life as economic development is probably pretty hard, and I'm guessing the conversation is how do you measure and how do you determine how that money is spent? And I guess my only thought on that, and Commissioner Archer and I were having a discussion around the Quality of Life project in Topeka this weekend on Twitter, where everyone communicates now, right? But what hit me about that, and I think what I would just kind of leave with my closing thoughts is that people are never going to completely agree on the project, right? Some people are going to like this project over this project and whatever that looks like. What I think you're hearing, and hopefully you're hearing from a lot of people, and I think the discussion we had was that there was an overwhelming support to use money to develop more quality of life projects here in Topeka. So as a community, I think you're hearing people say, like, this is the thing that we need more than anything else right now. What I would say is we've elected all of you to lead us through these different projects. So not everyone's going to always agree with what those projects are, but you all have done an incredible job leading this community as we've gone through those. And I think what the community is telling you is that we need more investment in the quality of life, and we trust you all to make wise decisions around what those projects are and figure out a way that we determine are those worthy projects to move forward. So that's it. I'll take any questions if you have some.
Any questions for Mr. Foster? Thank you very much for joining us. Oh, yes, sorry, Councilman Diaz, sorry.
That's all right. I'm sitting in a low chair. It's kind of. It's not so much a question as a comment. I think you're one of many corporate citizens that Topeka has the privilege to have in Topeka. And I think the role model that you set for the rest of the corporate citizens in our Topeka surely help us go hand in hand into these projects. And so I appreciate that opportunity, and I appreciate your willingness to do that. So it was just a comment on the things that I see that private business is doing to work with government to bring these changes about. Thank you.
I appreciate you saying that. There's been some great role models that have gone before us in that. But I guess the final thing I would say about that is that's probably the most exciting thing, is that never in the 20 plus years now that I've lived here have I seen the commitment both on the private and the public side to make community, or to make Topeka a better community. So we do. I know momentum is way overused now, right? Because we hashtagged it on the plan, but there really is some incredible momentum, and seeing both public and private work together is a big part of that. So,
Councilman Cohen.
Thank you, Chair. Are you finding that employees that get married, do they end up moving back to Topeka for the convenience?
No, they don't. So that's kind of my mission right now, because here's what's happened is a lot of those 12 that live in primarily Lawrence, probably a little bit more than Kansas City. Kansas City's been people that we've maybe hired that already had established there. But a lot of the Lawrence people moved there when they were either single or newly married without kids, right? So my thing has been, okay, now almost all of them have young kids now, right? And so the kids are more engaged in stuff. And I've been selling this idea of the commute. Like, why would you want to, it's 4 minutes for me to get from my house to the office. But Jeff, here's the challenge with it. They've established roots in those communities. So uprooting those roots, they're friends with their neighbors and stuff. So I've had a lot of those conversations, because I've been saying, like, hey, I'm not going to go after the young single person who wants a lot of stuff to do. Let's go after the person with a young family now that doesn't want to drive 40 minutes every day. But all of them said, like, we can't ever really see moving back right now, because, our kids have all their friends around, they're involved in all this stuff, which I think speaks to the urgency with which we have to stop the flow of people out, right? Because as they move out and they establish, it's no different than the reason I live in Topeka and I'm so passionate about it, is because I have roots down here that I can't imagine, uprooting and moving away. So I think it's our best opportunity is to try and continue to attract those people back in, but it's tough, man. Once they get established in another community, they don't necessarily want to uproot that and move back. So, but I was thinking the same thing you were, and I've been working hard on them, so.
Darn it.
Right. Any other comments or questions? Councilman Lesser.
Cody.
I should have left when I had the chance.
I will show you what brief is. No, actually, thank you. Thank you. I honestly, Topeka is lucky to have you, and and Advisors Excel, and the investment that you do in our community, and the investment that a lot of people don't know you do that I know you do, and so thank you. I get the quality of life, I've always been a slow learner, but I've always paid attention. And one example that some people here may not remember, but I do remember, we had a really up and coming company called NewTek that developed the video toaster and was just killing it. They reminded me a lot of Advisors Excel and your company, just really set the world on fire and doing all those things. And I'm sure it's much more complicated than I'm going to make it, but I had some friends who worked there, and the reason they left was they wanted something to do. They truly felt that they the guys were all going to Kansas City, all those different things, and so I get it. You know, and we have to, I truly believe that to keep our job force, to make you viable, to make other companies such as you viable, we have to create things for people to do and destination activities for them. You know, we've had the Perubskis, the Bobos, the North Star, all these things that have been here forever that people know of, and we need to build on that and create the Norsemans, the Pennants, the Evel Knievel museums, you know, all those different things that are going to make people want to stay and have something to do. So thanks for coming tonight. My first JEDO meeting too, actually, so congrats.
Any other questions for Mr. Foster? Thank you very much, Cody. Thank you. Before we go into a discussion, since Molly Howie helped me set up these people to come and speak to us tonight, to represent kind of a cross-section of our community, the young professionals, the business owners, the Momentum 2022, the Greater Topeka Partnership. But since we have him here, I asked Skip Smallwood if he would come forward just to briefly just to talk to us about where does quality of place factor into economic development from the ADO standpoint, if he's able to, and maybe thoughts that he might have having seen our presentation so far.
Well, first, I found the comments very interesting, and I wish more communities would have these type discussions, because trust me, they are. And before I address the ADO, let me put on another hat and tell you, really answer the short answer to your question is yes. There definitely is a direct relationship, correlation between the quality of place and economic development. And I'm going to talk more about the prospect side, because I don't know how many prospect meetings I've been involved with, and naturally they're going to look at logistics, they're going to look at the infrastructure. Those are all critical. But sometimes there's those intangibles that we just don't know about. We don't know why the decisions were made, because we feel like we've got everything they're looking for. And then we find out that because thanks to the internet now, there's just so much data that's out there that a lot of these individuals are looking at these communities, and they're really looking at what is there. And the more important question they're asking is, are we going to be able to attract talent? And sometimes that knocks a community out. Simply, even though they've got all the other attributes you're looking for, they're not convinced that they're going to be able to attract the talent. And even your existing companies, I think you heard this tonight, some of your existing companies are faced with this challenge. You know, Westar, for example, I know I worked for a utility and we were constantly struggling, where are we going to find our future workers? And you have to, so what are they looking for? That's the question everybody asks for. So they're looking at what kind of investments are you making in your downtown, because they are looking for vibrancy. They're looking for what engagement is going on with your downtown areas. Is there new restaurants? Are there new activities or whatever? They're looking for that. They're looking at recreational things because people are outdoors. They like to do things. They're looking at your educational systems. They want to know, well, how much investment is being put into your public schools? STEM is very critical, because we got to remember that a lot of these individuals are looking at their children, trying to figure out, we want to make sure our kids are going to go to schools that allows them to be engineers or scientists or whatever they want to be. And they're even looking at crime. I know there was one community that was looked at for a project, and they just could not answer the question about why they had a high crime rate. But the statistics are there. Even though you could debate the FBI numbers, that sometimes is statistically used, because that's what, in this particular case, the site visit actually had the plant manager. Nobody knew that was going to be the future plant manager, was actually on the site visit. Back home, that housewife was Googling that community. She had a list of every one of the towns that they were going to be visiting, and because she was going to, believe it or not, have some input in where this company was going to locate. When we forget about that sometimes. And because this community had a high crime rate, they got knocked out. So that's kind of the name of the game now. Even though infrastructure and logistics and all those things that I mentioned earlier, they're very important, you're seeing the talent issue is rising more and more, or workforce development. That's becoming very critical. And I think with what your strategic plan is doing, and I went back and looked at it this evening, I know you have grown, I think it's called Grow Hometown Talent. And I think that really dovetails really good with the quality of place. So really the challenge to you and the Economic Development Organization is to try to find those key performance metrics that ties back into the plan. You can measure your progress and then have that information available so those outsiders can see it. And also the existing companies as well, because I've heard the same stories. You ask, well, why did a company uproot and leave? You know, they had everything, you know, they weren't landlocked, the opportunities were there. It's just simply the workers just, I don't want to live here. I want to be somewhere else. And they are interested in being in places where there's just a lot of activity and there's a lot of amenities there. And I have to admit, when I didn't really know Topeka that well before I came here, but the 2 days I spent here, I came away with a very favorable impression. And I think when you show a town and begin to demonstrate that you can do some things and you are trying to better yourselves, that sends a very loud story. But I will tell you, in the prospect meetings, and I'm sure Molly can back this up as well, lots of times they are looking beyond just what we normally think about, and they are looking at your community as a whole. And am I going to be able to bring workers here, and am I going to have a happy workforce? You got M&M here. That was a big coup, getting a company like that to come here, but I can be sure they're probably faced with the same challenge, where they're going to find their talent. And I'll just close with this. I know one community that has employs about 2,500 employees. It's a huge OEM manufacturer in a small community. They're having trouble right now attracting engineers. That's primarily what they're looking for. They don't have a housing stock, and it's such a small community that a lot of the people, and these are individuals that are coming from the Georgia Techs, the Vanderbilts, you know, very highly regarded engineering schools. They don't want to move there. They say, we'll come there, but I don't want to live there. I want to live over here. And they're willing to drive over an hour to come to the plant. So that's kind of what you got to kind of think about. But I think you're at a good point, kind of what I call the inflection point, where you're beginning to put together your what I call your performance metrics. But you have to tie it all back to your plan now. And if talent is definitely what you're looking at, those are things you need to identify. And whether it's investment dollars, crime rate, or whatever. And let me leave you with this too. Don't forget about, I know we always talk about the millennials. Don't forget about guys my age. Because a lot of us, you know, we're thinking about retiring, and there's people looking around, you know, where do I want to live? And so they're looking at healthcare. You know, where are great healthcare facilities? They're looking at broadband, believe it or not, because they're very savvy with computers. They want to make sure there's high-speed internet connection. So a lot of them are outdoors, and they want airport connections. They want things like that. So you got to kind of think of the whole broader picture, but it all ties back into economic development. So there definitely is a relationship between the two.
Thank you very much. Other questions maybe from Mr. Smallwood? All right, thank you very much. So bringing us back full circle to where we began, our 2018 cash carry forward agreement that we discussed at the last JEDO meeting, we started a discussion of quality of place. And just to pick on you, Commissioner Archer, I think that you had brought up that when the voters voted on the economic incentives with the sales tax, it was for economic development. And where does that factor in? And I know this is kind of an ongoing discussion, but does quality of place have a role in our economic development?
Well, sure it does. But quality of place is wide open. I made a list of things. Is affordable housing, is that a quality of place issue? You're darn right it is. Parks and Rec? Absolutely. TPAC? Yeah. Roads and bridges? Absolutely another quality of life issue. Downtown Plaza? I see Kurt Young back there. I'm sure he's interested. Downtown Plaza. Is that quality of life, quality of place? Yes, it is. East Topeka Learning Center, quality of life? Yes, it is. Topeka Zoo? Yes. Kansas Expo Center? Yes. They're all quality of life issues. But the interesting thing is Topeka Zoo and the Expo Center were on the ballot. People voted for those. That's the difference. in my view, to do a lot of the things we want to do with quality of place, we're going to have tax money to do it. We're going to have a referendum because it's going to cost a lot of money to do the things that we want to do. So in my view, we might as well start talking now about referendums on taxes for quality of life and quality of place. That's my view.
It's a good place to start us.
Thank you very much. So I think that the big question here is what's economic development? And economic development, simply summarized, is simply getting jobs and the people to work on them. Because eventually when you have good jobs and you have people living in your community, you have higher revenues, and those revenues go ahead and help you provide all of the other things that you're supposed to provide as a city or as a county. I want to remind us, I've been looking at my phone and I keep on just like, okay, it's time for me to go, time for me to go. I want to read this to people because he who forgets his history is doomed to repeat it. Or she who forgets her history is doomed to repeat it. 2010 Kiplingers, you want to talk about momentum. 2010, this community started talking about this group. Actually, 2007, we started talking about downtown redevelopment and bringing back the core of our city. It was a group of volunteers, citizens of the city of Topeka, who said selflessly, without being paid to do the job, we're going to get together and we're going to bring back our downtown. That was 2007. 2010, we were recognized by Kiplingers as one of the top 10 communities to be looking at for the past 10 years. Let's see what they said. But like any city, Topeka has room for improvement. Its downtown district near the picturesque Capitol Dome empties at 5 p.m. Various groups and business people are collaborating on a downtown revitalization project, and the development of an artist district is underway in the Kansas River. 2010. We seriously have, and we are in the middle of a war for talent. We have a 3% unemployment rate. We are hearing not only from our young people like Angel, like Gabe, we're hearing from people like Cody, we're hearing from people from all over the community telling us we are starving for an entertainment district so that the young people that are coming into our community can go ahead and enjoy this. And if we want to get very legal about the situation, Cody said a word that really resonated with me. And he said the word leadership. And if we're going to be leaders, it is our task, according to our interlocal agreement, to determine what economic development really is. In the first page, it says, for purposes of this agreement, economic development includes research, target marketing, existing business retention, new business recruitment, infrastructure, site acquisition, incentives, funds, training, and expansion, and things that, so pretty much what it's saying, it just keeps on going. Anything that considers the inclusion of an urban economic development program. It's telling us in there that we have the language that we need in order for us to address economic development as a priority and quality of life as a priority. We have the language. I don't think that we are bound at this point in time. The language actually gives us the freedom to determine what is economic development and what makes a community thrive. We're being told by our community. We are planning on it through Momentum 2022. And I think that we have a wonderful opportunity to start talking about something new and have the leadership to say these are the things that we are going to invest in, have a policy about, so that we don't have the chance of having somebody determine what is economic development for us and quality of life. We have a chance to have a really frank discussion. But I don't think that we have to go back to the ballot. I think that we have the language right here that is not only authorizing us, but is calling us to be leaders in this area and to finally listen to what our constituents are saying.
You know, I don't know that going back to the ballot, there may be issues that we need to go back to a referendum on, but I don't know that all issues need to go back to the referendum on. But for me, how do we measure our success? How do we measure what falls into economic development versus what is our role and what is not our role? And I think for me, I'm looking at how do we set those policies of what falls into quality of place and what does not. And I think that's really where we need, because before we start down a path of establishing a project or setting aside funds for a project, we need to establish that it falls within those policies. And having a metric, as Skip Smallwood talked about, of having that metric of measuring a success. And I think that's an important part of that policy. I know several of you tonight are new. This is your first JEDO meeting. This may not be exactly what you anticipated getting into when you ran for city council. Congratulations, you're here now. But I'd like to hear from some of you, voting and non-voting, all of you, as to where do you see quality of place factoring into economic development? Councilman Emerson.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll step off into it here. I will admit, like with downtown redevelopment, I was a skeptic about 5 or 6 years ago because I remember in, I think, 87 or 88, we did the brick walks and stuff. And then I remember maybe it was 2005, 2006, we did the Center Street parking thing, I think we only did for about a year. And even though I love any construction project as a construction person, I just thought, boy, here we go again, you know, the third time spending millions of dollars over the last 20 years. But I have to say I was wrong because shortly after I got appointed to the office, my daughters still have 3 daughters, but they were, a couple of them were still in high school at the time. And one night they asked us, you know, we said, you know, what do you want to do? Well, let's go down to Lawrence, let's get on the Mass Street down there. And I said, I would normally say, okay, let's go. Well, I thought, okay, you know what, I'm the city council now. I need to try to support the city. So I told them, I said, let's go down downtown. There's a lot of stuff down there. And of course, I mean, it was really pulling teeth to get them to do it. But the deal I made was, hey, let's go in there for 20, 30 minutes. You know, if you don't like it, we'll leave and we'll go to Lawrence. They came down. There were all the pocket parks. Most of them were done by that point. Barton West has the nice one with the lights and does the thing over there in the pencil. They went down and saw the Burlington Northern Santa Fe. And my kids had that to do. My wife and I went to the popcorn place. Sorry. Thank you. You know, we sat through, there's a jazz band playing, the chocolate place next to it.
Hazel Hill.
Thank you. You know, and it was great. I mean, my kids were doing stuff. My wife and I were sitting down talking, and I was like, wow, I was wrong. You know, I didn't have the vision for that. And that's something that's kind of haunted me ever since. Like, I need to have more of a vision for what things can be instead of what they have been. So I do think it's a critical part of quality of economic development. I do think quality of life is important. I do agree with Commissioner Archer. How do we narrow it down? Because I see that's going to be the big issue we're going to have. I can foresee 100 people wanting their project to be the thing we do. So that's going to be the tough part, I think, that I foresee. But I think it's a critical part, and especially the testimony everyone's given tonight. Thank you.
New members? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my first official JEDO meeting. But seeing as I've grown up here and I've worked for the city for almost my entire adult life, I'm not unfamiliar with the challenges that the governing body is trying to overcome, as well as the Shawnee County Commission. And I remember growing up in this town, and downtown was the place to go. I mean, you shopped here, you ate here, you just hung out with your friends. I can remember going to Hayden downtown, and one of the first things we did when we got out of school was delayed long enough so that we could go to 4 or 5 of the stores downtown just on our way home. We'd walk in, look around, buy something here and there. You know, that was just the thing to do. And we look forward to the holidays, the way they decorated downtown. It was really then, I think that's when Topeka felt like it had an identity. But when things changed and we started to look at just one side of town, we were going to put all our eggs in that basket and abandon what we already had. That's the thing that I think hurt us and hurt my memory of Topeka. I kept thinking, well, why don't we cherish what we have, maintain it, grow it, and go from there rather than, well, that was then and now we got to look towards the future without any looking back. But I think we have to look back because those are the things that are, like we talked about, roots. You develop those roots because of your experiences in this town. And yes, quality of life totally is essential to any kind of economic development any city has. So I'm encouraged, like I said earlier, some of the comments about a renaissance, about an energy, about a momentum, as it were, to move forward. Talking has been good, and it's necessary. But jump off the ledge. Let's go forward and continue that effort. Thank you.
Yeah. Councilman Mays. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Feel free. You know, I'm a lifelong Topekan as well, and I would say that the quality of place is one of the main reasons that I decided to run for elected office. When I see Topeka now versus what it was when I was a kid, I'm encouraged. But I look around and I see opportunity everywhere. I mean, we have, just looking at Kansas Avenue, the bones are there, but, you know, we still have a lot of work to do. And we have a lot of quality things to do in Topeka, but what we don't have is a central district where we can walk from place to place. And I do a little bit of traveling, and typically when I'm in other cities, one of the first things I do is I'll get on, you know, Google or Yelp or something, and I'll find whatever the local establishments are, because I want to take in some of that culture that you can find in that particular place. And in Topeka, if you want to do that, you've got to have a car, and you know, you might want to check out Blind Tiger, or you might want to check out Fuzzy's Tacos or something. And there's not a place where you can, you know, take an Uber and then walk around for a couple hours and then Uber back to the hotel or whatever. You know, I mean, it's just not possible here. And I think that, you know, I don't know exactly how we narrow it down, as you know, Commissioner Archer was saying, but I think it is a very important piece of economic development here.
Thank you. Commissioner Buehler.
Well, and I know we've used quality of place and quality of life, and I don't know if they're the same thing or they're all the above. I don't know. But I mean, to me, community development is economic development. I think when we started out with Go Topeka with the holistic strategic planning, it was a Go Topeka strategic plan, and it developed into community development is economic development. And so I would argue that, you know, we're doing some transportation initiatives. We're doing East Topeka Learning Center. We're looking into broadband, 712 innovations. Those are just a few examples that are included in economic development. And those are quality of life, quality of place. So, but I will also say that, you know, there is not enough money to do everything. And so how do we approach this? What is the process? How do we prioritize? How do we measure the impact on any one given project? And the metrics tying it back into the plan. So believe me, my first JEDO meeting is a lot different than your first JEDO meeting because we do have more discussion, and I applaud Commissioner Cook and the mayor for having this discussion, for prompting this discussion. This has been good. So thank you.
Councilman Lester.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add, you know, when I think about quality of place is in comparison to some of those other things that were mentioned, or in my mind, right or wrong, I think of disposable income and things we're going to do in free time and things like that. And I'll toot your horn a little bit, Commissioner Bueller. I learned a little bit from you from the standpoint of when we worked together on Rossville. The pool's quality of life, the really nice park, there is quality of life. And those are things that help to keep people from, I'm going to move to Topeka, those type of things. And so I think sometimes on that's a small scale, sometimes, looking back at those things is what reminds me of how we do it on a larger scale as well.
In the video that was played, there's a comment that says, "We may not have all the answers." And tonight, I can guarantee you, we do not have all the answers. But by having the opportunity to hear from the community, from hearing different participants, different stakeholders, from hearing from each of you, we've had a healthy discussion tonight. And I think that's one thing that was needed before we start into anything new, having that discussion. And so I will try to work with the comments made tonight to work towards maybe something that we would look at in the May JEDO meeting as to this ongoing discussion of where does quality of place factor into our economic development plan, and if it applies to the carryover funds or any other funds that we may have. So, is there any other discussion? Michelle, Bill Isla, sorry.
It's okay, I'm not hung up on titles. Would it be too bold to ask this body to consider, for Shawnee County, it seems like if we consider what we have all heard, not only from the community, but hearing from other people, it seems that the center corridor in Kansas Avenue seems to have recurred several times. People saying that we lost that center and core and that we're looking for a dynamic core in which people can go ahead and navigate. And when I think of dynamic core, I don't think of just downtown Topeka. I go from Nodo all the way, like that whole continuum of that area. Would it be too bold for us to maybe even consider, as you're having that conversation and thinking through this, maybe putting that center corridor as one of our top priorities for quality of life? Because it seems like we've been having the conversation since Kiplinger, since 2010, that this is an area that needed intensive attention.
And my only comment on that is I don't know that we can limit it just to one part. I think quality of place does factor into our downtown for sure, really from the riverfront all the way down. But I don't know that we can limit quality of place to just
No,
one.
not limiting it, but saying that as we're trying to narrow it down, that this is going to be one of our priority areas.
I think that would be something that we would have for discussion in May as we look at an actionable item.
Well, another idea that we really haven't talked about is take the $2 million or look at additional surplus. I mean, there's a lot of money in Go Topeka that could be used for the community, and split it, give the city half, give the county half, and make our own priorities. If the corridor is the city's priority, spend the money there. If Expo Center is our priority, we'll spend the money there. But that's always an option, or something to consider, is we take whatever is there, surplus, $2 million plus, what else we decide we want to invest in the community, split it between the city and the county and go forward.
Michelle, Mayor Isla?
Thank you. The only, I appreciate that sentiment. However, I think that the beauty of having this body is the fact that we are all working together for the betterment of our community. And community isn't limited to city or county, it's all of us. And going ahead and saying, I'm gonna take the easy way out and just divide the money, and you take your ball home and I take my ball home and we'll play with it apart, just completely obliterates the beautiful effort of all of us coming together and planning together for our community, and as leaders establishing that vision. I appreciate that vision, and absolutely it's one option, but I would highly encourage us to consider working together.
Let us come back in May with a proposed actionable item as to this. And I'll also be working with our counsel, Jim Crowell, to help draft whatever that quality place.
I have a question.
Yes.
A proposed item that we would vote on, or a proposed process then by which we would,
Good question.
would decide on which projects would be eligible for? I just want to make sure we clarify what we're going to be doing in May.
We could have some assistance from the county counselor as to what we are able to do.
Well, I think that's your decision. I think that's this body's decision to decide, do we want to draft a policy and move this discussion forward based upon a draft policy, or are we not there yet and we need to define have more of an outline and define parameters and discuss parameters that we then use to draft policy. That's your decision. I'll do what you want me to do, and I'll do whatever I can to help you, but I think that's the decision of this body to direct how far we go with this.
In the past, we've used a subcommittee to help bring things back to us. Would there be a direction from this body to have a group of city and or county that would help work on that proposed actionable item? And if so, who would be willing to serve on that? I hear that Mayor would like to serve. Councilman Lester would like to serve.
Are you going to serve as chair, or?
Unless one of my other two would like to serve.
We wouldn't want to take that honor and glamour from you.
I would be willing to serve.
Good
All right,
deal.
Thank you. So I will work with Councilman Lester, Mayor Della Isola, and myself to bring an item back to us for discussion or review and possible action on in May. All right, our next item.
Item 12, other business.
Is there any other business to come before JEDO tonight?
Public comment.
Oh, next item.
Item 13, public comment. We have two speakers signed up for public comment. The first is Keith Warda.
Commissioner, I'll decline.
Thank you. Next.
The other person is Carol Markle.
I won't.
Thank you, too.
But I did write it down, so it will be rather brief. I want to say, having sat at these meetings for a number of years, they are 1,000% better, and you really, this was a good meeting. When Matt started with Go to Pica, I mean, he just hit the ground running, and I don't think the man has taken a breath since he's gotten here. He and his staff have brought just a lot of needed positive changes to Go to Pica. There are still a couple of things I have an issue with. I would like to know, when we talk about numbers, and I don't mean to pick on anybody, but when we say we have 44 new businesses, I'd like to see a list. I'd like to know what they are. I don't like generalizations because I want to know where my money goes to. The most important thing, though, that I do want to do tonight is I've listened all night. I think we've had awesome discussion. But I want everybody to think about, what have we heard? What area have we heard? And that has been Topeka. I want to remind you that the people that live outside of Topeka, we also pay that sales tax. And I think it's time that the communities around Topeka and different areas, Montera isn't one, and our small towns, it's time for us to be included. You know, I did not hear, I heard Rossville and Silver Lake mentioned in passing as good places to live, and that's right. They are good places to live. But how about having some programs, some classes, satellite office, do some stuff with 712 Innovations in those small towns? You have to remember, we're paying this tax too, and we'd like to see something that we're going to benefit from. I don't come up much to downtown Topeka. Maybe I would if it had more to offer. But I do things with my grandkids. In Rossville has a wonderful playground. They have the pool. Auburn doesn't have anything, you know. We need to spread it out. We cannot forget about the community because we're also taxpayers. I do believe that quality of place does have and should partner with economic development, because I agree with what everybody said. If we don't have quality of life, quality of place, however you say it, you know, we're not going to have, our county is not going to grow. So thank you very much. And like I say, the meetings are a lot better than they used to be.
Thank you, Carol. Commissioner Buehler.
Commissioner Cook, I do just want to clarify something, that the cities of the third class, so Willard, Rossville, Silver Lake, Auburn, they all receive the county half-cent sales tax. But that goes then to their governing bodies, and Willard does have a mayor, city council form of government, but they receive those sales tax dollars directly to those governing bodies, and then those governing bodies choose to do what they want with those sales tax dollars. So the difference being that the city of Topeka and Shawnee County as governments come together in the interlocal agreement, and that is how we work forward with JEDO and then contract with Go Topeka. But they do receive those dollars through the half-cent sales tax, yes. And that's how, I know a number of years ago, there was a feature of how some of those communities were using those half-cent sales tax dollars, and some was for the pool in Rossville, for other projects in those communities. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you very much. Anything else then? Our next item?
Adjournment?
Almost.